Hey everyone, my name is Matthew Beaudouin and welcome to the Erdnase Go-Arounds tip video. So Erdnase Go-Around was first published in the trilogy by Dan and Dave, and you can buy the actual tutorial over at their website, artofmagic.com. Today we're going to look at a couple tips for the basic move, but also a couple of variations I've come up with over the years, most of which I worked on during the ICO 2015. We'll look at some general applications that you can use in Mixups and just general juggling-like scenarios, but also some more specific applications which I think are also pretty cool. So with that in mind, let's get into it. So when I see people perform Erdnase Go-Around, I notice they don't have that much spin in the packet. And the packet just kind of wobbles in the air and doesn't look that great, at least in my opinion. And so my main tip is to focus on getting the packet to spin a bit more. The general rule of thumb is that you want to have it spin more than you can count the number of rotations without trying too hard. And the reason for that is that with more spin comes a bit more stability, and also the flourish looks cooler because there's more motion that happens. Now to actually make it spin better, my suggestion is that once you are in the correct position, use your index as you're raising your hand to pull back on the packet, like this. The two bottom fingers don't actually do anything to help that packet turn. They're just here to keep it in the right position. As a result, it really helps to have the index be on the corner of the packet. And there you go. So another thing is the index should help keep this packet as square as possible. Even with the deck right out of the box, you can actually perform Erdnase Go-Around without any issues. The difficulty is really just keeping the packets really square so that when you rotate it, all the cards stay together. So in the words of Zooey, add more spin. So one of the more natural things to do when performing Erdnase Go-Around is to go behind the back. And it can be kind of difficult at first because getting the right motion is not very natural. So to practice that, I suggest just practicing throwing your arm without actually throwing the packets to get the motion somewhat natural. And you want to get it such that your wrist is beyond the rest of your body. So then with your arm, you want to throw the packet using the momentum of your arm throwing. And you want to aim such that the packet kind of goes around your shoulder and arrives roughly in front of you. The idea being that you want this to look kind of smooth and relaxed. And by doing both these things, it looks kind of effortless. Not really like that, a bit more like, nope. There you go, now I'm cool. And you can be too. So this is where things get fun with Erdnase Go-Around. This is what I like to call running Erdnase Go-Around. And the idea is just to take the standard Erdnase Go-Around and just keep going with it. The first thing really to get over is when you first learn Erdnase Go-Around, you have a tendency to relax your hand such that you can grab the packet. But since you don't grab the packet in the same hand, you have to unlearn the relaxation of your hands such that you can then peel back and take the next packet. And that can take just a little while because depending on how long you've been doing Erdnase Go-Around, you might kind of be stuck in having the reflex of relaxing your hand. And to get over that, I think a good way to do it is to put yourself over a bed or something and then just kind of throw them without really thinking about catching the cards. Just throw them as fast as you can and as consistently as you can. Another thing to keep in mind is to, as you get more and more comfortable with the move, try to get the packets to be smaller and smaller. Very simply because the smaller packets you have, the more packets you can throw and the longer you can have the running thing go. In terms of catching the cards, this is probably the weakest point of Erdnase Go-Around as a move in general, which is just kind of inherently because the packet spins, there's a certain chance that the packet lands not right with the other one. So personally, in terms of catching the cards, I like to just keep a rather open grip that accepts both the horizontal and the vertical position, and just kind of deal with the fact that half of them are going to be in one direction and the other half in the other direction. And then when I need to square up, I just kind of wiggle them around and close it as you can. Now, as you get more and more comfortable with the move, then you actually can start controlling how you do your spin. And my suggestion is to really try to get, instead of trying to aim for a certain number of spins, which I guess you can do, it's better to try to just get the muscle memory spot on such that you always do exactly the same motion. And if you do exactly the same thing all the time, then necessarily you'll get the same spin. And with enough practice and focus, then you can get them all lined up pretty consistently. So the natural continuation to running Erdnase go-around is to do it in one hand. This is a move that was first shown by Jaspis, a move that he calls Immortal, and his is slightly different in the sense that he throws the entire bottom packet instead of doing another Erdnase go-around. My version is different in the sense that it works slightly better for mix-ups and also means that you can do a triple Erdnase go-around, which, you know, if you're really feeling yourself, is pretty cool. Really, the double in one hand is a lot like juggling two balls in one hand. So if you're going for the cascade style, then your hands are going to be going in a circle, and when you reach the inside, just in front of you, you're going to throw one of the packets, and then you're going to be receiving them on the other side of the circle. And looks something like this. Now you can also do it more in columns way, in which case you're throwing one in one column and the other one in the other column, and then your hand kind of catches up. Basically, the only important things is that the packets can't collide in the air. Well, they can, in which case, you know, it doesn't work, it just blows up, it looks horrible. But that's the main thing you're going for, and those are kind of good ways to accomplish that. As you get more comfortable with the running Erdnase go-around, then you can start doing some mix-ups. And one of the more straightforward things to do is just crossing your hands, which really isn't that much more difficult. The only main difficulty is just you have to throw it from different directions into different places, and your receiving hand has to jump kind of all around the place to grab the cards. But besides that, it's really just the same move, which looks very different in the end. And you can kind of go for different effects. You can either have packets really go in arcs in different directions, which has a very juggly effect. But you can also have the packets go straight up and your bottom hand just picking up the packets wherever they pop up, which is also another interesting effect. And again, just the same move, but with a different effect. So now we're getting closer to things that look like juggling. So one of the ideas with doing a double/immortal is that you can receive a packet from the other hand and send out another one before it hits your hand. So I can send out this packet into here and then throw the next packets out before I catch it. So it looks like this. Now what I can do with that is that since I'm sending a packet here and I'm still in an Erdnase throwing position, then I can just do it again. So I can actually throw 3 packets. And if you're familiar with juggling, that looks a lot like a standard cascade. Part of what that means is that when I throw this packet, it's going to arrive around here, and I'm going to throw it, again, talking about the circle I was talking about before, throw this packet and then catch it here, like this. And typically you kind of run into a problem with this where you can't really do more than 3 packets, because when you receive a packet from an Erdnase, because it's rarely square and just in general, because you need to relax your hand, it's hard to get back into position fast enough to keep going. So again, in the spirit of doing mix-ups, you can also throw in some behind the back stuff. And at this point, you can really just do whatever you want. This is one I like to do, which is just a behind the back and then do the Immortal on the other hand, and it has an interesting effect of going all around. You can also do, again, a triple, because the packet you've thrown behind your back, you still have an Erdnase position. And so when the packet is transferred from this hand, then you can do it again, and you have 3 packets flying through the air, and it's a good time. Okay, so finally, the last mix-up I want to talk about is one that's particularly difficult and I'm not very comfortable with. So I'll give you the idea, and hopefully you can work on it and be cooler than me. So the problem we were running in before is that whenever you receive a packet in your hand, you need to square the packets, but most importantly, get into the Erdnase throwing position to do another Erdnase. And so I thought that meant that there was no way to do any continuous Erdnase go-around stuff, but I was wrong, and I found out a way to do it anyways. So the idea is actually pretty straightforward. Do running Erdnase go-around in your hand, and really focus on keeping the packet square. because eventually when you run out of cards here, what you're going to do is do a double in this hand, and then that'll give you enough time to regrip in this hand to do running under Erdnase go around in the other direction. So, just like that. So you notice I ran out of cards in this hand, but obviously I could have kept more cards here, done another double in this hand, and then done running Erdnase go around in the other direction. And theoretically, you can just kind of continue forever. Now, it's pretty difficult, and I've never really done it more than 3 times, but hey, you could do better and be cooler than me. So now let's look at some of the more specific applications. So first of all, there's the Multiplex, in which 2 packets spin out of the hand at the same time. And the idea here is just that when you open up the packet, you also want to further riffle the packet so that you have your flesh between those 2 bottom packets. And when you perform the Erdnase go around, just as before, you want to have a little bit less strength with your index, but still want to push both packets at the same time. And the end effect is that both packets spin in the air. And again, in the spirit of putting things together, you can do the multiplex followed by the double, and it looks pretty cool. And the main difficulty with this one is that because you aren't actually gripping the top packet all that much, it's hard to keep it square, and so it's possible that the top packet will kind of multiply into a whole bunch of small little packets and fiddle pathetically into the air. But with a bit of practice and an older deck, then it can work a bit better. So another more specific application, which is inspired by the Cobra cut, looks something like this. Because it's inspired by the Cobra cut, I like to call it Erdnase's pet snake, but you don't have to call it that. The idea here is that instead of doing an Erdnase go around and catching on the back of my hand, my index is actually in contact with the bottom packet the entire time. And so in slow-mo, it looks something like this, where I push it slowly, and then it nicely lines up with my hand. And the other thing is that it's supposed to be perpendicular with my fingers, mainly because it has to be parallel with the other packet. Because then what's going to happen is I'm going to lift my hand. Because my thumb and pinky are relatively far from the middle of the deck, by releasing it, this packet is going to slowly rotate by about a half a turn. And meanwhile, I'm removing my hand, and then I can grab both at the same time. And so at full speed, it looks something like this. And so because you kind of end up with the packet face up, and because of the nature of the cut, I like to use this as kind of a finisher to a combo where I do a couple things and end with a running Erdnase go around, and then just finish with that as a kind of bam in your face. It's also great because it's the one that's going to fail the most spectacularly if you mess it up, because you're literally throwing the cards on the ground. And so in that sense, it's a good time. So to top off this tutorial, I'm gonna end up with Factory, which looks something like this. And so the idea is pretty simple. So you have cards that are going up and down at the same time, and you have it in such a way that it just repeats itself, kind of like a factory. And this idea is completely stolen from juggling. There is this move that's also called Factory, which is done the same way, except it's with balls and just juggling in general. But it functions the same way. And so the idea is that as I drop this packet, I throw this one such that it lands around here. And so when the packets are in the air, I move my hands as fast as possible to catch this packet and this packet, which allows me to just do it again over and over. The main difficulty is grabbing the packet in the air such that it is exactly horizontal. And this is actually kind of easier than grabbing the packets for the running Erdnase go around because of the grip you're using, which is just holding this like this. But it's really important because when you drop the packet in this hand, you want to be able to move into Erdnase position as fast as possible. All right, well, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, then go ahead and put some comments below, and maybe you can help out. If you have a sick combo you really want to show the world, then social media is a great way to do that. You might want to use the hashtag EGR combos just to make it specific. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Have fun with Erdnase Go Around. I'm Matthew Beaudouin, and I'm a cardist.